Pilot Boys in the building. Let's go.
Pilot Boys, we get on up. We gon' fly, boys, we getting up.
You are listening to the Pilot Boys podcast. We are joined by a very special guest, Columbus Woodruff, who's a marketing director for Fooda, also an entrepreneur who's just an all-around badass. We're very grateful to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you, gentlemen, for having me. I'm extremely excited.
Yeah, man,
it's to finally connect, get you on.
Yeah, obviously we've been following you for a long time and known you for a while and just seen all your different moves. And again, just amazed about how you always, make something out of nothing or just create something that's so amazing. And so we really want to talk to you about that today.
Thank you.
Yeah, starting from the beginning, I think the thing that's always stood out to me about you is that all of us come up with these aha moments and have ideas that we think could potentially change the world or make us a lot of money. But 99.99% of us never get past the idea phase. What's always stood out to us about you is that you're the guy who has that aha moment and comes up with an idea, then gets to work in actually executing and making that a reality. Yeah. And I think, before you became an entrepreneur, you were a basketball player. And I think a lot of your competitive nature and your desire to win at what you come up with comes from that. So I wanted to start there, where you were a basketball player. You were actually a college level basketball player, but a point came where you realized your hoop dreams were coming to an end probably, and that you had to figure out how to take care of and feed your family in another way. So if you could just take us through that transition to start from athlete to entrepreneur.
Yeah, sure. I think that being an athlete in general, you have this competitive nature, but I think there's something to be said for the non-star athlete, which is what I would consider myself. I was somebody that in college, I got to play a lot, but I got to play a lot because I worked really hard. Nothing came natural. I was the kid in the weight room. I was a kid pushing everybody in practice. I was a kid that everybody was like, dude, come on, we got these wind sprints down to a science, quit running so damn. And I'm trying to get minutes. These guys know they're going to play. I know that I was only going to play if I outwork them. And I think that was probably what basketball taught me. I was good enough to get a scholarship, not good enough to make any noise, and never did I have any delusions that I was ever going to be in the NBA. So, but it was a path for me. And so I knew from early on, unlike you and Mecca, who became lawyers and getting master's degrees, some from the most prestigious universities in America, my work ethic and hard work and being competitive was my gift. It was not going to be, I guess I'll take that back a little bit. I was going to say it was not going to be my brain, but I think that was the mentality from being young, because I didn't realize what my brain can do until I was in college, until I started getting exposed to things that fascinated me, like entrepreneurs, people's families that I would meet, and their families would come to school and I'd meet their parents and, oh, my dad owns this, or my dad. That was fascinating to me. And I felt that was my path, entrepreneurial - anything. And so, basketball was the start, the competition in basketball. But I really believe that kind of being the underdog, if you will, also played a big part in that.
Let me ask you a question about the hard work thing, because I think it's often talked about, but not really. People don't really go in depth in terms of how you get there, right? Do you believe that, first of all, how do you feel like you became that way? And then secondly, do you think that that's something that you can actually teach somebody, or is it one of those things that's either in you or not?
It's a tough one. I'm going to answer this in two parts. Number one, I got it from my father and my stepfather. Now, I want to say this as respectfully as I can. Both of them were gentlemen who enjoyed life, enjoyed to come home and have a couple of Dr. Peppers, and and didn't seem to be what you would describe as a leader or someone you would look up to in terms of that, right? But I've never met any two men that never stopped working.
Yeah.
Ever.
Mhm.
So, you take, the fact that they were dealing with maybe some demons and kind of going to a bottle or what have you, whatever helped them get through that. But they never, ever stopped working. And so learning it, I did learn it.
Mhm.
I learned that, man, if you just keep working and keep working and keep working, and you can function.
Yeah.
And in the town I grew up in, Ashland, Ohio, it's like modern day Mayberry, getting out of high school and getting a job in one of the factories was making it.
Yep.
In a sense. That was never what I wanted. But these two men taught me that work ethic was everything. They just never, ever stopped working. I never seen my dad tired, ever. Never. He got up every day at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't care if it was Saturday, Sunday. And he never let us use the excuse of we didn't have time. If we didn't do something, his first question would be, what time did you get up?
Yeah.
So if you got up at 4 in the morning, he would just be like, if you got up at 3, could you have got it?
Right.
So that was one part. Now, the second part is the work ethic side. It's the one thing I've hired a lot of people over the years. And it's the one thing that I always say it is tough to define or decipher or find out if someone has that in an interview. And to me, it's the number one quality that anyone can possess, because I feel like I can teach anybody with work ethic how to do something. I can't teach anybody that thinks they know everything with no work, and they might know everything.
Yeah.
But I can't teach them anything. And so I think it is the number one quality. And I think you're right, Mecca, that not enough people focus on that. I've always told, I used to have a blog years ago, and it was actually called Don't Forget to Work. That was the name of my blog. I did it up until I left Cleveland and moved to Houston. But it was all about success stories and people, and because owning a printing company, I would meet a lot of people who own small businesses. And you listen to their story, and I guarantee you, in the middle of that story, someone says, I was just working my ass off. And I love that. That's it's like the part of the story I'm waiting for. It's like, yeah, okay, good. Yep, you bought one lawnmower. Okay, cool. Okay, you're doing it. And I was just out there working yes. And so, yeah, that's a big part.
Yep. And so you're one of your first forays. We all share this, actually, because this is one of the first things Mecca and I did as entrepreneurs was to become a promoter, right? And we always talk about the value of that experience as promoters in any business you go into, because you're running the show, you're networking, you're trying to figure out a way to make money. So take us into that part of your journey, how you decided, hey, I think you started as a concert promoter. This is what I'm going to do, and how you approached becoming successful at it.
I think that I'm someone that is not ashamed to admit that sometimes you need a little bit of luck. And although I considered myself a promoter trying to put on events that were slightly upscale, and I felt like that was the niche in Cleveland, there were 8 million places to go if you just wanted to bang your head and watch the fights that close down the club at the end of the night. And I wanted to do something that actually made people feel comfortable, that was a little more exclusive, lie about how many tickets were left, just so people would want them more. But why I say luck is because people may or may not remember this, but there was a baseball strike. And the baseball strike was right when it happened. This was in 94, 95. The baseball strike came, and a guy played for the Indians named Kenny Lofton. Now, Kenny was an excellent baseball player. A lot of people remember him. He was an all-star. But what they don't know or may not remember, Kenny was a way bigger basketball fan than baseball. Baseball got him to the pros. His love is basketball. And Kenny used to come play in open gyms with us, and we used to go do things. So we used to hang out a lot. We would go to different places. He played Cleveland State. He beat all the runs. And I'm not saying we became the best of friends, but we garnered enough friendship that he allowed me to use his name to put on a Father's Day boat ride on the oh my goodness, now I'm not going to remember the name of the boat. There's this cruise line that cruises
I
around.
remember it too. Everyone rides to the same boat.
So this is the first event where we're charging like $100. It's like 2,000 tickets. We're charging $100, and you got Kenny's name on it, and Kim Sellers, who at the time was married to Brad Sellers, another NBA player who I became really good friends with. Through this, a lot of people would throw events back in the day and put special invited guests. That was the thing. And of course, none of those people ever showed up.
Nope.
The difference between my events and those was they're coming.
Right.
When people get there,
Special
they
guests,
see
not
Kenny
special
Lofton,
invited
they
guests,
see
right.
Brad Sellers, they see Carlos Baerga, they see these people like, this guy got people here. Then you see Bone Thugs who walks up, hey man, we want to get, of course you can come, and that type of thing became, hey, when Columbus does something, people are actually there. So there's no longer any special invited guests, and that news travels pretty fast.
Yep.
There was a guy named Al Black I really looked up to, called Black Productions in Cleveland. And he used to know a lot of people, and he helped me get Shaquille O'Neal events with Biggie Smalls. Like right when these guys, Shaq was big, but Biggie was just coming up, and all these different people. But the biggest thing was people were actually there. And what I realized was if you can put on a product and give them exactly what you say, it separates you from everyone.
Yeah,
and so there was the luck plus a little bit of foresight that made my promotions successsual.
What made promotions appealing to you? Because I think sometimes, promoters, when you get kind of thrown into that box, every style of promoter kind of gets thrown into the same box. But I think there are different types of promoters and people who use promoting for different reasons. One, like you said, it's obviously an opportunity to create, the type of environment that maybe you would want to go to. But I think there are other benefits that people get from promoting that people don't talk about. Talk about a little bit, some of those, if you don't mind.
Well, I think that people don't realize the equity that you can put on fame. And there is an equity piece to fame. And if you talk to, probably, you guys know this well, you guys know a lot of famous people. You can talk to, I remember seeing an interview with Little Kim one day when she was saying, I was flying all around the world and couldn't pay my car note. I was on private jets, staying in the best hotels in the world, all these things. But she was able to, obviously she became a bigger and bigger star, but she was already famous. And that fame has probably carried her to whatever she is to this day. And so being a promoter exposed me to a certain level of fame, which helped me do other things. Once people see you as successful or see you as popular or see you as someone that is maybe gaining some financial gain or prowess or what it may be, they want to gravitate to you. And I never took that for granted. I kind of used that to parlay into other things. And so
there it is.
And speaking of that parlay, one of the more interesting things is that you actually started or helped start the And One basketball tour. As you said, that network and building those relationships led you to opportunities. And one of those big opportunities was the And One basketball tour. Anybody who was around in the late 90s, early 2000s knew how big that was. Take us into the synthesis of that, how you decided to start it, how you recognized the market need, because I think that's an important part of your story, is that you recognized a need in the marketplace.
Absolutely. So I have to give credit to people, and people will argue this. I can't take all the credit because there's a guy named Mark Edwards out of Atlanta, and I think Mark is still doing like high-level basketball training for pro athletes or high profile college. But when And One first started, it was literally a mixtape. And just like everyone, they had these trash talk t-shirts that, the guy holding the ball, the muscles, and One is a trash talk concept in itself. You get hit, you still make the bucket, And One, and it was literally a mixtape. And so once again, I mentioned Brad Sellers earlier. So when I saw this mixtape, someone had played basketball my entire life and seen the things that these guys were doing, I'm like, this is insane. Like what they did was, and one had this amazing marketing tool for promoting their apparel, which was, let's go to different cities and find the best of whatever it is, a person who dribbles the best. Who is the best shooter? Who can jump so high that it's just mind-boggling? Well, they went and filmed these guys doing that and gave them free apparel. There was no tour. And so they filmed Hot Sauce with the handles. And that before Skip to My Lou was in the NBA, you know, Ray Austin, they're filming him, Half Man, Half Amazing, White Chocolate, all these different people. And they put him on a mixtape. And I saw this mixtape and said, as a promoter, I want to do a game. I want to put these guys against some other people and do a celebrity game. And so I called my friend Brad Sellers and I said, hey, Brad, we need to call this Your Team versus. So it started as just a celebrity game. Well, here's the one thing people, and I've told many people know this story. So we did the first game. This is 2000 at Tri-C Community College at their gym, held 1,500 people. We had 1,500 tickets. I'm being told by police that approximately 15,000 people showed up.
Wow.
I was put in handcuffs for inciting a riot. I was inside. It was crazy. I remember LeBron and Eddie were outside calling me, and I had not met LeBron. I couldn't get them in. I couldn't get them in the place. It was just a fascinating thing to see all these people show up. So only about 900 people ended up getting in to the building. There was about 10,000 people outside fighting, doing everything else. They let me go. They did not arrest me because the commander said it's an organized event on the inside. I was able to prove to them that I did not oversell the event. These people just came down like any other event thinking I could buy tickets at the door. They had to close off the exit of the freeway. So as the game finally started, I'm sitting over here in the back of my mind. You talk about an aha moment. I'm like, holy crap. First of all, if I'd have known this many people were coming, this would have been at Gund Arena.
Yeah.
Right.
It'd have been good. And I was only charging $10 per ticket. I'm like, $40.
Right.
So that was the start. And so Mark Edwards and I, and so Mark is a guy who was a New York street legend at one time. He helped And One find these players. And he also had a kid living with him that he met that was illegally living at 24 Hour Fitness. His name was Hot Sauce. And Hot Sauce was living with Mark, and he was trying to get him. So me and Mark started doing games all over the country and the world, everywhere. And it just became this amazing thing that that I'm still proud of to this day. And a lot of the players that you see on N1, we discovered them along the way. They would come to the games and they'd want to show us, but they're like, oh, great. But in the beginning, N1 was not paying any of these players. We were. They were only offering them apparel deals. And it was about 2000, I want to say 3 or 4, N1 wanted to, I guess, kind of control the rights to the players. And they wanted to take the games to huge arenas. You know, when we would come to a city, we would go to, if we're in Cleveland, Ohio, we would go to Cleveland State. Mm-hmm. They'd want to go to Rocket Mortgage. What is it called now?
Quicken Loans Arena.
Is it Quicken Loans now? Okay, Quicken Loans. They want to go to Quicken Loans, but we would go to a place that held 8,000 people and packed 9,000 in there. It was ruckus, mayhem. You put 9,000 people in a place that holds 23,000. Yeah, it's not. I would say they killed the environment, and they tried to turn it into a reality show and all these things. So it kind of fizzled out. But I felt like if done right, they had the opportunity to make it as big as the Globetrotters are still to this day, able to sell out arenas. I just think that they should have kept with that same vision.
What do you feel like one of the most important things that you kind of took away from that experience was?
Lawyers. You got it. You, Mecca. So, in full disclosure, and one and I fought over the rights, if you will, to the tour. And what they decided to do was they put all the players on contract and put something in their contract stating they could only do games under this, whatever I think it's called, basketball marketing. And they sued me in Philadelphia. And I ended up having to fly back and forth to Philadelphia, fighting this thing. And, because I didn't have everything I needed, paperwork wise and attorney wise. I did for my printing company was growing time, but this thing, I still was looking at it like a promoter, and I wasn't treating it enough like a business, even though it was making a tremendous amount of money. Yeah. And for everyone that thinks that, has this mindset about having attorneys and what they are and all, they can kill that, because it's kind of like 911. You can talk bad about the police all you want, but if someone's holding a gun to you, you're calling the police to help you out. And I'd say for anyone that is starting something or has something of value, you got to protect it. And I didn't do a good job of protecting something that I built and Mark Edwards built early on. But so I also I'll say that this wasn't my first experience in the street ball realm. NBA All-Star Weekend, back to my promoter days, and that influence that you have out of town being a popular promoter, I got a call from a guy that ran the Rucker tournament. What's his name? Oh, shoot. I think of his name. But he passed away. He ran the
Earl Manigault?
What's that?
Is it Earl Manigault?
No. I'll think of his name. Yeah. But he ran the Rucker tournament at the time, the Entertainers Basketball League, they called it. And he wanted to do a celebrity game. And he and I did a celebrity game at Cleveland State University, NBA All-Star Weekend in '96. And it was awesome. I mean, we had all the best with Puffy was there, Mace. We had the Locks back then.
It's funny. You can always tell what era somebody's from. Whether they call him Puffy or whether they call him Diddy. I still call him Puffy too. I'm old. Right. But so his name is Greg Marius. Greg Marius is his name. Okay. Greg Marius ran the entire Entertainers Basketball League and the Rucker Park. I think Greg passed away about 5-6 years ago, something like that. Well-known guy, but I got to meet some of the players that became N1 players during that because he brought all these guys from New York, Half Man, Half Amazing, Headache. He brought these people to this game in '96. And so I got to know a few of the players then. To this day, Headache is one of my favorite people in the world. But so N1 wasn't my first delve into the street ball, what have you, entertainment world. Right.
Well, the next phase is an interesting one because that's actually how our paths crossed. You had been doing the promotion. You took a trip to Vegas, and you saw something in Vegas that triggered a thought in your head.
Yeah.
Take us into that and the birth of Hot Cards.
Yeah. So, in Vegas, you walk around and there's these people handing out these cards of these nice young ladies that people would like you to come visit late at night, and they do dances, ballet dances late in the evening. So, but printing was expensive, full color printing. So everybody back then went to Kinko's on whatever the paper of the month was, and you print out your flyers and you cut them yourself. But if you wanted real full color printing on glossy cards for $5,000, I think I had a quote one time of like $2,500 for 5,000 postcards, full color. Well, I'm looking at this flyer and it's full color, but I'm in Vegas. So I'm like, one of these big casinos or whatever places can afford this. But on the back of the flyer, it has this little tag that says designed and printed by Da Bomb Factory, spelled D-A Bomb. I'm like, I don't think this is a Fortune 500 company. the bomb factory. I'm like, this doesn't sound like a printing company. So I'm like, "The Bomb." And so I kept the flyer. I went home and I called, and I called the guy, and it's literally just a young kid in college. And I'm like, well, how did you afford it? He's like, well, I gang run print at this printer. He's out of California. He's like, I gang print at this printer. And he explained to me what gang run printing is. And what is it? He said, well, I put that flyer on a huge sheet, like a huge sheet with someone else's business card, someone else's flyer. And then we cut them all out. The most expensive part of the printing is the setup, the initial setup, the ink, the paper, the plates to start the job. Once the job is rolling, the paper is the cheapest part. But to print 5,000 flyers, you got to waste I'd say about 500 sheets of paper to get the colors right. The plates cost a lot of money. And then the ink and the setup and all those things, having someone convert them into plates, that's the biggest cost. So putting all these flyers on one huge sheet, now if there's 20 people on the sheet, they're all sharing that cost. And that's how I was born. And so my idea was, I'm bringing this to this area because evidently it's in California now. And so that's what I did. I went to all these different printers with this idea. And, you often hear people talk about people making fun of their idea. Like, I literally had people laugh at me. Like, this is not how printing goes. This is not how printing is done. And I couldn't. And what ended up happening is I stumbled. This goes back to that work ethic Mecca. I wasn't giving up. I'm going door to door to printing companies. And I stumbled upon a place on Lakewood Avenue in Lakewood, Ohio called Vetta and Sons Printing. And they had a full color printing press that had a tarp over it. So the reason it had a tarp, because they said they just didn't have enough full color business. And so I proposed this idea and that I would do this. So they said, yep, well, then we'll lease you our press every Tuesday. Here's the cost. We're going to charge you for this sheet. It doesn't matter if you have one postcard on it or 1 million, we're going to charge you for the whole sheet. So when I started off, I'm just losing money. I got Rump Shaker doing strip shows, and I got Peabody's nightclub. This one stripper guy and Peabody's nightclub were my two clients. And I just kept doing it, and myself, of course. And so that boat ride I talked to you about with Kenny Lofton was probably the first flyer in Cleveland that was full color. And this was 4 years into the boat ride, realize, so this is some years in, we've been doing the same. And here all of a sudden it's beautiful and full color. And then things just started evolving so fast. The flyer itself made people just feel like anything I did was going to be upscale. And that was the start. And I focused on nightclubs. And then I realized every single company in the world, especially in Cleveland at the time, uses printing. Every single company wanted it full color. And so what I was able to do is I still have these quotes on this book that I kept. The cheapest quote that I got for 5,000 half-page flyers was $2,500 and some change. I was able to reduce that cost, same quality, from $2,500 to about $400. And that's how Hot Cards was born. And obviously continue growing. But the sales aspect of it and those things were me grinding and trying to build the business and deciding that Hot Cards, I would put all my prices online upfront. Sorry, I almost fell on you guys. And that was not normal for printing companies either, to show you, hey, if you're going to buy 5,000 postcards or 5,000 business cards, here's your price beforehand. People like to quote you based on your business. If you're calling from Cleveland, the price might have been $800. If you're calling from Joe's Lawn Care, the price might have been $400. Right. So everything upfront pricing. And
eventually you ended up selling that business. Obviously it was very successful. We used it for different things that we were doing. And how did you come to that decision? And was it something that was hard for you, considering how much work and effort, you talked about the hard work you put into it, considering that?
Yeah, it was tremendously hard. Ironically, the people who sold me my printing presses, there's a guy, his name's John Gadd, and he was someone that was always fascinated because he'd been working with printing companies so long, to what I was doing. There's a number of anomalies here. One, you just don't see new printing companies popping up on the corner, period. Now, add the fact that, I don't know if you guys know this, I'm an African-American, so African-American guy opening up a printing company, something else that doesn't happen. And then actually expanding the business out to other markets. So as he's selling me these printing presses, he's always been fascinated, like this was the move. And then we saw but he took that and helped other printing companies kind of move to what I was doing. Here comes the evolution of a company called Jack Prince. Big up to those guys. Those guys were just the greatest of competition to me, because they came along and made me want to work harder, because it was just me. I was dominating, and John Gadd helped other printing companies say, hey, look what this guy is able to do. You can do this too. You get a press and gang run and all this. And I think there was about 3 or 4 companies like ours that ended up in Cleveland. Well, that same guy, John Gadd, as fascinated as he was, and maybe he felt guilty, had come back probably around 2009 or 10, asking about buying my company. And he had an investment group that was based out of Chagrin Falls, Ohio. And I said no. And, at the time I was trying to figure out where I could move in life. I lived in Ohio my entire life. I wanted to be somewhere it did not snow. That was a goal. Mm-hmm. And as the business grew, I realized I no longer I wasn't working anymore. I was working, but I was only making decisions. I had a production manager, I have a marketing manager, I have a graphic design manager, we have a team manager, we have all these people, customer service. All I did was sit in meetings, and I said, I can do this from anywhere in the United States. And so I moved to Houston, and I got a divorce, or I was getting divorced. And that was really the time when I thought it made sense, because I could get her a big lump sum of money. I get myself a big lump sum of money, and we all walk away and figure out what I want to do after that. And that was what really drove, is moving somewhere different and hoping, I can get a big chunk of money at one time. And that would allow me to, one, just kind of not make any decisions, just enjoy life, ride my bike, clear my head, and use that money to live on until I could figure out something that I was going to be passionate about again later.
I want to circle back to something you said in your answer there. And one of the things that I've taken from you is, a lot of people say the customer comes first, right? And for you, it's always been your employees. I remember when I would come in there, your brother was there, your wife was there. And it's always been important to you to create opportunities for other people, right? Yeah. And also not just give them opportunities, but make them happy to work there. Because I was one of your most annoying customers, because I would come in 16 hours before and you guys say, well, you need a 48-hour window. And I would just talk my way into it. Somehow you guys would get it done, and someone would get it done without getting upset at me or frustrated with me. And that says a lot about the training of your employees. When did you figure that part of it out, which was, you know what, without my employees, this business isn't going to operate well. And I need to make them happy, not just financially, but also happy to come into work for me.
Yeah, to me, it's huge. And I think it's a mistake that many, many people make in business. Your employees are number one. I always used to give this example. If the richest guy in the world walked into my printing company and there was no one there to help him, he would just walk to the next company. And I don't care what their customer service is like. If they're there, he'll do business with them. That's it. The only requirement that he was looking for are people at that point, because he already knows what he wants, and there's lots of companies. So for me, I realized early there's a few things. I'm owning a printing company. The workforce from a printing company, the demographic of that is going to be normally a high school white male who went to a vocational school that had print shop as a class. And that print shop, they took that because these guys were thinking, I'm not going to college. printing is something that will give me a lifelong skill. And at the time, running a printing press was an art. It's an art form. To this day, I wouldn't know how to turn on a press. It's the size of a semi-truck. I think most people think printing, think copiers. You know, my printing machines are the size of semi-trucks. There's lots of buttons and things, and I literally, not exaggerating, could not turn the machine on to this day. If someone said, how do you turn it on? I don't know. I do not. It's an honest goodness truth. I have no idea how many buttons to hit so that everything's going to work. You got to turn on the feeder. You got to make sure this is up to temp, that, turn on left, ultraviolet. I don't know how to do it. So anyway, what I realized is I'm going out trying to recruit people to come work for a startup printing company. And if we want to be really honest with ourselves, most of these people, first time they're working with African Americans, definitely the first time they're ever working for an African American. Mm-hmm. This is a decision now someone has to make. Mm-hmm. I can tell you 100%, I had people that were racist that worked for me. Mm-hmm. I know this because we had very, very in-depth conversations from time to time. And these were times when people would kind of give me that Columbus, I'm happy, proud to be working for you. And then they want to tell me about their past. You know what I mean? And so I realized my customers, for me, were all my employees. They are the ones that deliver everything, every product, every service. And that happened as I was growing, because in the beginning, I was customer service. Someone called me, hey, this is John, how may I help you?
Right.
Let me see if you're still available. You know, that's the things I'm doing. But I knew everything that was said to every single person in the beginning. Well, as you start getting employees, you start realizing it's a job for them. Yeah. And they don't have the same passion and conviction to the customers you do. So the only way to even get it close to try and bridge that delta a little bit is to make them feel like they're the most important people to the organization. And you have to do that every single day. And I learned that training them about diversity, customer service, understanding employee engagement, and behavioral economics, which is something I got fascinated on in early, was the way to help people run through a brick wall for you. You know, that's it. If you can really focus and make them believe that they're the most important person, they will do for you what you want them to do for Viswant, which is, hey, I know he's coming in here last minute, but man, if we can do it, why wouldn't we? Yeah. But can we also do it with a smile on our face? Yes, exactly. So those are the things. So
when you ultimately left and went to Houston, and like you said, you kind of just felt like you needed to clear your head, figure out what was next. What was that process like for you initially? And then what did you do? What did you eventually jump into next?
So initially, when I came here, the talk of the start of the sale of hot cards was happening. It took a while. It took about 2 years for the sale to finalize and get approved and everything. But I literally wanted, I didn't have a plan. There was some talk about me opening a production facility here because shipping from Cleveland and Philadelphia, where we had production, all the way to the West Coast, it started changing our pricing a little bit. And shipping from Houston would have helped out in that. And this is a big hub going either direction. And after the talks got big, I literally had, my only idea was I wanted to open some restaurants. And what I realized was, to a lot of people that own restaurants, I realized I didn't want to own a single business that had any inventory. Mm-hmm. I do not want to store inventory. I dealt with that in the paper world. We spent $1.5 million a year on paper alone. We spent $500,000 on ink and had to store it, had to store different stocks, had to have all these different things. And I didn't want to do that anymore. I don't want to store anything. Now, those weren't perishable items, but in the food industry, it's perishable. You run it on smaller margins. And so, Mecca, my whole goal was to find a business or businesses that allowed me to not have a product to sell. I was attracted by like cleaning companies and things like that. But at this point in my life, I wasn't interested in a startup cleaning company where I have one home,
Yeah.
It needed to be a little bit bigger. And so I started doing a little bit of consulting around some things and found this company, BI Worldwide, that was focused around something I was already doing, which was behavior economics. And if you guys want to you can't sleep at night one day, give me a call. I can explain to you what behavioral economics is. If you can't get to sleep, put you to sleep real quick. But the short answer is behavioral economics is using behavior to drive anyone to do anything.
Yeah.
And I'll give you one example that a lot of people may remember. There was this commercial for Pace Salsa where these guys are sitting around a campfire and they're like, their salsa's made in New York City. You guys remember that commercial?
Yeah.
Like, New York City.
I remember New York City. New York City. Yeah.
Like, they didn't say anything fresher. Oh, I'm still here. Well, they didn't talk about any ingredients whatsoever. All they said is the competitors is in New York City and ours is in San Antonio. So the behavioral side of that is San Antonio is in Texas, closer to Mexico, lots of Tex-Mex, has to be better.
Yeah.
And Pace became the number one selling salsa in America. That is how you use behavior, or one way to use behavior to drive emotion, to drive a behavior. So you're digging into someone's emotion, the emotion's there, and it drives behavior. And that works with customers. It works with your employees, keeping them highly engaged. And that was something I got fascinated with and started doing consulting around that.
Nice. And so that transitioned, you started working and you started seeing how big companies in Texas, everything's bigger in Texas, right? You saw how big corporations in Texas operated, and you started to see the mechanics of how that company worked. And then your network from Hot Cards led you to your current opportunity, where you kind of merged what you were doing as a consultant with the concept of Fooda. Take us into what Fooda was, how the opportunity presented itself to you, and why it appealed to you. Yeah.
So, remember me thinking, what's the next business move? And I stumbled across this because John Gadd, the same person that came back and bought my printing company, I had knew somebody that was with Groupon. It was like this, it was one of those things like, if I were to put this all in one circle, it's like, come on, no one would believe that all this is by happenstance and like that I didn't know any of these people prior. But a conversation with him led me to Fooda. And I'll explain the concept first, and then I'll explain how I got involved. What Fooda is Fooda, you take a big office building, huge office building, and those people if there's no cafeteria in that building, those people have to make a decision at lunch. You got 3,000 people in the building that either are going down to the little deli that's somewhere close, they're going to the convenience shop, they're ordering DoorDash, Uber Eats, or they're getting in their car, they're leaving or walking somewhere. Those are their options. And so what Fooda does is we'll take a kiosk, kind of like you'd see in a mall, like the center of a mall. We'll take a kiosk, we'll put it in the lobby of this office building. You put it in the lobby of this office building, and then in that space, every single day, we bring you a brand new restaurant. So today, it could be Peli Peli. Tomorrow, it's California Pizza Kitchen. The next day, it's Chick-fil-A. The next day, it's Halal Guys. Mm-hmm. Every day, you get a brand new restaurant. And so you never get tired of the variety. So now you have 3,000 people in the building that can ride the elevator, escalator down, grab hot, fresh food, go back to their cubicle, watch Game of Thrones, and have their full hour.
It's a genius idea.
There's an app where they get to follow along to see who's coming for the next few weeks. So you say, oh, I've been wanting to try Killen's barbecue. And on this day, I don't like this, so I'm going to bring my lunch. And that day, I'm going to lunch with my friend. So it becomes a service that is unlike any other because of the rotating restaurants. Mm-hmm. And these are literally the actual restaurants serving their food by their employees. So me as the Fooda, I don't serve any food. I just created, right. Mm-hmm. So we're a lot like Uber. So Uber had this amazing way to marry people who want a ride with people willing to offer a ride, right? So, and they made it really cool and engaging. And to everyone that tells me it's not cool and engaging, I'll say, just think like this for a second. You order the app, then you see the guy and you're like, oh my God, why did he go down Smith Street? He's going to get caught at that light. You get in the car, you're like, hey, next time, don't cut down there. You're engaged. Now you get out the car, you're rating him. That's engaging. So that is way better than being upset from trying to hail a cab. And so we found a way to make getting lunch engaging. Mm-hmm. And that is the company. Now, once again, going back to my there's no product to sell other than the services. I don't cook any food. I don't serve any food. All I have to do is build out a team. And so here was the difference between Fooda and all the other opportunities I had in the past. So Fooda, I have an opportunity to have equity in a startup company and run an entire market. And I know you said there's marketing director at MEC, it's market. Marketing director.
Mm-hmm. So market director, yeah.
I own the market and everybody reports into me, operations, sales, what have you. And so, but I also had to build it from scratch. It was just me and my son. So it was me and my son, Will, who took a year off of college to help me get this thing off the ground. And our first pop-up was Williams Tower. And going up to pre-COVID, we had about 100 buildings and expanded to 3 cafeterias. And when I tell people that about these pop-ups, they don't always see the big vision. And you guys will get it very fast. So that one pop-up at Williams Tower does about $1,500, $2,000 a day. They serve about 200 customers. There's 4,000 people in the building, so we're not catching everyone. But we're serving about 200 people. It's a couple $1,000s a day, times 5 days a week. So that's 10 grand a week from this pop-up. Times the month, that's 40 grand a month. Times a year, we're talking about that little silly pop-up now makes $500,000 a year. We had 100 of them. And so that's the vision of Fooda and how big this opportunity is. And once we built out a team, then we started going after full cafeterias. And places like Phillips 66, Weatherford, Dow Chemical, Schlumberger, companies that have these huge cafeterias that we're going to do the same thing we did in the pop-up, which is what? You got 6 food stations. We're going to have 2 regulars, what we call residents. So we're going to bring in free birds to run your Tex-Mex station. We're going to bring in Salada to run your salad bar. And then we're going to rotate 5 different restaurants every single day. This makes people more excited about going down to their cafeteria. Now it doesn't seem like cafeteria food. And I think the biggest trick that we played on the industry, unlike some of the other competitors, the exact same price you pay at any of their restaurants is what you pay at our pop-up. We don't allow a single penny markup at all. Wow. And so you've all ordered DoorDash and it said $12 when you put it in the cart. How it became $26 when you checked out, there's no idea. But $12 is $12 for the food to pop up or in the cafeteria. So
let me make a quick point real quick before you go into something else, is that one other reason why I think this is so genius is because I remember when I worked at a big law firm in New York City, and one of those buildings that had 50 floors and all that type of thing. And one of the things that I remember hearing, and I don't even know if I was supposed to hear this, I think I overheard it, was from the executives that they loved the idea of having a cafeteria in the building because keeping people in the building made people actually work more and work longer. And when they had to go out and figure things out, to the point where at one firm called Wachtell, which was the #1 firm in the world, they used to have a food station that would go to people's door to people's offices. So literally they wouldn't leave. Every single service they would bring to their door. So on top of the fact that you're servicing the actual employees in the building, you're also serving the needs of the employer. So I just think it's a genius idea. I just wanted to point that out real quick.
Mecca, you are 1,000% correct. And I'll take it one step further than that. We've seen studies by companies. So there's a difference between a multi-tenant building and companies. So companies have found that if they give their employees $5 to eat at that said cafeteria, so you're like, you're going to pay me to eat? Well, if you're a lawyer at a big law firm in New York, you're making $150, $200K minimum anyway. $5 to them for your lunch is nothing. However, they're paying you, let's call it $300 an hour. So that $5 that keeps you going to that cafeteria is nothing compared to the productivity gain from you not taking a 2.5-hour lunch by leaving the building, sitting
Absolutely.
down. The clock doesn't start till your food gets there.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
And the other part of this is you realize too that your employees, when you work at any company, I used to see this when I worked, everybody was planning their schedule around what they were going to eat for lunch.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And so therefore that's the other part of it too. The employees now, they don't have to make those plans, right? They're not spending time doing that. I'm just going to go downstairs to the cafeteria and I know I have a multitude of options that I can pick from. And at any time, if I have a 15-minute break, I can go downstairs and get something. And I think the thing that you took it from, I think in Houston specifically, is you saw not just having like the cafe, but actually building out the kitchen and the cafeteria and kind of putting that cost on the corporation versus you taking on that cost. Take us into how you kind of sold that concept to these corporations.
Absolutely. So let me take a step back. So most of the opportunities we've been in right now, that already existed. So what we're doing is coming in saying, you have a legacy provider that's there. And you guys know who, I don't want to say their names, but they're in hospitals. They're anywhere there's a cafeteria is legacy provider. And there's a Chef John that is making food every day. On Monday, he's making brisket. On Tuesday, he's making Taco Tuesday. But there's the chef that's running all these stations. And what we do is come in and say, we'll take over your whole operation. But instead of having Chef John cook tacos on Tuesday, we're going to bring in Torchy's Taco. And we believe that everyone thinks Torchy's is better than Chef John. So it's going to make people more engaged and use the service. Now, we do have some buildings where we have had people actually build out spaces right now, the Swans, and they're not open yet. They're done, but not open because of COVID. So we've had some people build out spaces specifically for Fooda. And that's the thing that we've been able to do is we'll tell someone, we don't need you to build out a huge kitchen. So we're not telling them to build out a kitchen. We're telling them build out a cafeteria space minus that huge cost of the kitchen, the grease traps, the expensive machinery. This is millions of dollars of investment to create a back-end kitchen for these cafeterias. And Viswant, what we do is we'll go in and tell them we don't need all that because we're bringing in restaurants that have prepared most of this stuff at their locations. They're bringing it in. We need the best warmers in the world, the best places to do these type of things, but we don't necessarily need you to have that expensive equipment all the time unless we're taking it over from someone that already had it. But that's a tremendous...
One more question on... Oh, sorry. One more question on Fooda before we move to something fun and get you out of here. Just if people wanted to actually use this service, how would they go about getting in contact with you guys? What's the process like?
Yeah, so if you're in one of our markets, we're in 26 markets. We're in Columbus. Opened up in Columbus, I want to say right at the beginning of this year. And I know it's growing. Obviously, I keep saying pre-COVID because we know a lot of people are working from home now. Currently, we went from 100 buildings open. Right now, we have about 12 buildings and 2 cafeterias open. But we know all that'll change when they come back. But basically, anybody can download the Fooda app and just search where you're at. It'll tell you wherever there's a Fooda pop-up. Most people that have a Fooda pop-up in their building also go to other buildings for work and other things like that. Anywhere there's a Fooda pop-up, you can use your app. I want to say there was probably about 25, 30 buildings with the Fooda pop-up in Columbus and growing. But it's merely downloading the app. But normally they find out about us by seeing us in their building. Yeah. And we don't do any advertising because we're strictly for the buildings that we're in. We don't do one-off deliveries like other companies and things like that. We want you to ride the elevator, escalator down, get your food, go back to your desk or wherever you're going to go and enjoy your meal.
And then do you guys, I guess I'm just curious now too. Do you guys actually brand Fooda on the kiosk or is it just the company that's providing?
Yeah, it's called Fooda. Yep. Our food halls are branded Fooda. Our pop-ups are branded Fooda. Yeah, everything is Fooda. So people understand the brand. And
Yeah.
you know that a different restaurant's going to come in there each day. They have a digital menu board that'll show the restaurant that's there that day. But we've done a good job of making sure that we're branding everything Fooda as it continues to grow.
Yeah. This is
That app is the critical piece of everything. It seems like.
yeah. And this
Just
is
like
brilliant, man. This
Yeah.
this is brilliant. Honestly, you're a brilliant guy, and this idea is brilliant. We wish you a ton of success with it. And we want to get to something fun real quick before we get you out of here. Give us your top 5 musicians of all time.
Boy, I was thinking about this here. So, Michael Jackson has to be on my list. I grew up with, I bought the red jacket, had the high love for Halloween, probably more than 1 year. So Michael, I would put Jay-Z. My favorite rapper is Jay-Z. To me, it's Jay-Z. Like when everyone makes a top 5 list, it's Jay-Z, then everyone else,
Right.
And this might surprise people, but I have to put Drake. And I know people hate that I say this because I'm an old school guy, but I feel like this dude makes more music that I not like but love than probably all the people I named before.
Yeah,
Michael Jackson and Jay-Z. And it seems like he can't miss. And I'm kind of one of those people that like the whole I didn't come from drug dealer to this, you know what I mean? He came a different route and has still garnered this respect. I'm a big 80s music fan, but probably Steve Perry Journey, to me, the best single song ever made. Single song is Don't Stop Believing. I feel like there's not a single person, no matter what their favorite music genre is, that would say, I don't like that song. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
It may not be I think it's the best song by default because no one in the world will say, oh, I don't like Don't Stop Believing.
Yeah.
But a lot of people that will tell me they don't like a number of my favorite Jay-Z songs.
Right.
And then, hold on, I need one more. Oh, boy. I probably have to go with Luther Vandross. Go a little old school crooner. Luther.
All those babies.
What's that?
Said helped you make all those babies.
Absolutely. No question. No question. Dang it, Luther. He's a blessing and a curse.
And this one we debate and we talk sports a lot. So your top 5 athletes. I have a sense of a couple of them, but want to hear the rest.
Well, Michael Jordan is. I feel like Michael Jordan changed all of our lives in some way, form, or fashion or another. It's just this guy. It's crazy. But I think our debates are more about eras. So Michael Jordan is always going to be one of my favorite athletes. LeBron is one of my favorite athletes. I respect some of the things he's done. I think probably the three of us here probably dig a little deeper in the weeds and understand the people around him and understand sports in general. And I feel like it doesn't matter if you know of anything good or bad about LeBron. He's been able to stay above board in terms of the media. He has lived up to all the hype on the court. And by any standards that's known to the public, he's one of the most upstanding citizens that we have in our United States. And so I'm impressed by his accomplishments for someone that's been in the limelight since he was basically in the 8th grade. Lance Armstrong is to me someone that I feel continues to change my life to this day because I don't play basketball anymore. I don't things, but I just finished watching the Tour de France this weekend. I took up cycling about 2007 after seeing his story and coming back from Tokyo where everybody seemed to be on a bike. And I understand the controversy surrounding him. I also understand the industry. Like we had in sports when Jose Canseco said, hey, everybody's doing dope, they kicked him out. What we find out? Well, everybody was doing. We found out that he was correct, and that was And I'm not giving Lance a pass, but I'm saying that was cycling back then. And I give people a little a fact that people probably don't know. Many people don't know. So Lance Armstrong won 7 straight Tour de France's. They vacated his victories because he admitted to doping. But do you know that there are no victors of those 7 races, because the person who got second place, the person who got third place, and the person who got fourth place all were found doping.
Yeah.
Those 7 years are 100% vacant. They didn't give it to the second place. And I think that, to me, if people understood that, I don't think they would think so badly about Lance. Lance was doing what he had to do to compete. He didn't look at it as cheating. And anyway, so, but I think cycling athletes are some of the best in the world. Isaiah Thomas, he was my favorite guard growing up, and I always just really looked up to Isaiah Thomas. And last, I'll go with Walter Payton. I feel bad with Walter Payton for a couple reasons. If anybody who wants to take a look at it, and this might be me and my psychological mindset, but Walter Payton won a Super Bowl. And if you look at him after he won that Super Bowl, and I'm sure you could, he is the only person that walks off the field that's not high-fiving. He's not smiling. He doesn't seem that happy. And I guarantee it was because he was like, I worked my ass off all these years, and they handed the ball to Refrigerator Perry to score a touchdown. And
I like Marshawn Lynch.
The biggest level of disrespect any athlete's ever had. And he literally just walked off in disgust. And then after his career was over, I still don't feel like he got what he deserved. He was gone too soon. So I think that he's one for sure.
That's a great list, man. And look, this has been amazing. Obviously, we could talk to you all day. We do talk to you all day, and we're probably gonna keep talking to you, to keep learning from you, because I feel like one of the things that's amazing about you is, first of all, you work hard, but like you said, you never stop learning as well. And also, I think you're also very forthright with that information and giving back and teaching people what you've learned. And I think that's, at the end of the day, when you look back at your legacy, that's going to be a very big part of your legacy. Probably the thing that you probably care about the most is how many people you brought up behind you and mentored as you were learning. So we really, really appreciate you. And thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
Mecca, I want to add to that. I apologize. I know you're signing off, but what you just said means a lot. And this is a humble brag, but it's not for me. And I want to say it on this podcast, so it lives forever for my son, is I got an award from Fooda for building up the market from a $0 startup to a $15 million market in just 2 years. And amazing. I couldn't have did that without my son. And so they sent me this amazing award, which I'm going to mail to my son, who's now back in Ohio with you guys. I love it. I want to thank him. This is for him. And it goes to what you said, Mecca, that legacy that I hope he continues on in doing things and knowing that he can accomplish whatever through entrepreneurship or whatever he wants to do. But William, this award is for you. I appreciate what you did to help me get this market going.
That's big, man. That's big. Congrats. Congrats to you and congrats to him.